Misfits, people ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today.
Hello, Misfits. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Dre Baldwin. Dre is an interesting entrepreneur who owns the brand Work on Your Game. He is a former pro basketball player playing in 8 countries during his career, but he wasn't a superstar from the start. He had to work harder than anyone and actually walked on at a Division III school to get his shot. And he made the most of it, succeeding in turning pro, which I can't wait for him to tell you more about. He was an early adopter of YouTube and has a massive following. And since leaving pro basketball, he's offered 35 books. He's created over 400 products. He's given 4 TED Talks on discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. And if that's not enough, his daily Work on Your Game masterclass has been downloaded over 7.5 million times. So hearing all that, you can probably see why I asked him to be on the show. And I love his no-nonsense, straightforward approach to success because it's a lot like mine. So Dre, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I am ready, Dave. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Let's do it.
Hey, man, it's great to have you on. And yeah, man, you've got a really great story. Like, you weren't destined to be like a sports superstar, it sounds like from the get-go, but you found a way, made a way, and then did everything else you've done. So take 3-5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So started out coming from the city of Philadelphia, now I'm based in Miami, Florida. Always played sports growing up. Found my way to basketball by around age 14 after trying a few other sports that I wasn't really that great at or I wasn't going to stick to. Didn't make my high school team till I was a senior. Sat on the bench that one year. I tell people I had a front row seat to all the games right there on the bench. To watching that season. Averaged 2 points per game. So those who are not basketball people, listen to this. 2 points per game will get you in the Hall of Fame in soccer or hockey, but in basketball, it gets you on the bench. So after high school, wanted to keep playing basketball at the next level because I had started late, so I felt like I was still getting better. I walked on to play college basketball at a Division III school. So those who, again, if you see sports on TV, the college players, that's usually the Division I guys you see on TV. We were down in the basement at Division III. So players who play at that level, even if you do amazing, people don't really care because you're playing against non-professional caliber opponents. So I did play college basketball, but again, at the Division III level. So getting out of college, nobody was saying, hey, this guy's destined to be a pro. So I had to wait my turn to kind of hustle my way to get a chance to play pro ball. So 1 year removed from college graduation, after working a couple quote unquote regular jobs at Foot Locker and Valley Total Fitness, I went to an event called an exposure camp. Dave, you familiar with those? Heard of them?
I am, yeah. They're where they set up for athletes to come in that maybe didn't get invited to tryouts and stuff, and scouts come and everything, and they're looking for that diamond in the rough, right?
Exactly, like a casting call for athletes. So any athlete who feels like they can play at the next level, back then it was just for pros, but now they have it for high school, college, all levels. So I went to one of those events. You had to pay to go to this. So this is a pay to play. And it was a 2-day event, and that was my chance. I played pretty well there. I leveraged my experience there or my performance rather, to get a scouting report that was basically a third party that says, hey, this guy Dre can play. And then I went and took the footage from that exposure camp and I started reaching out to basketball agents to try to find one who would be willing to represent me, which is kind of backwards. Usually when you're a pro caliber player, the agents are calling you, but I was calling them to try to find my opportunity. Found one who agreed to represent me. He helped me get my career started in Kaunas, Lithuania. This is in the late summer of 2005. Give everybody a time frame here. And so that footage from that exposure camp was on this thing called a VHS tape. Dave, you remember those?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so the VHS tape, I knew that if I left it in the sun or it got wet or I lost it, I would lose that footage. That was the most important footage I owned as far as basketball went. So I took it to an audio-visual store. They put it onto a data CD, and that footage I uploaded to this brand new website called YouTube. And that's where I started to build I found out that I was starting to build my brand online. That was not the idea from the beginning. I only went and got to put it on YouTube just so I could have somewhere that the footage would be that I couldn't lose it. You can't lose the internet. You can lose a VHS tape. So that's the reason I put it on YouTube. Now I'm playing overseas at this point. I will put videos on YouTube every now and then, but I realized really early on that when I put the videos on YouTube, Dave, that I saw people left comments on the video because I didn't even look at YouTube again for like 6 months because who cares about YouTube in 2005? But I saw there were comments on the video and it was clear to me they were basketball players who were just curious about learning the game. They weren't curious about me. They were curious about learning the game, and I looked like someone who might know. So they just started asking me questions. I made videos sporadically, put them up on YouTube for probably the next 3 years, 2005, maybe 6, 7, 8. I put videos up whenever I felt like it because I could see there was an audience and that they liked it. But again, there's no brand building in 2007. There's no money to be made posting content on the internet back then. Back then, you were a bum living in your parents' basement who needed to get a real job. You were posting content on the internet or blogging, so I'm playing overseas, back and forth, traveling and putting videos out randomly. About 2009, I found myself unemployed from basketball. Phone's not ringing. Don't know when the next opportunity is going to come. For those of you, again, who follow sports lightly, there are more athletes with that situation than there are the LeBron Jameses and the Kobe Bryants. Right? So there's a lot of athletes kind of on the fringe. You can call me on the fringe at that point. And I asked myself an important question. And it was, how can I combine basketball, which I knew I was good at, the internet, which I'm a kind of a closet internet geek, and making money? How can I do all three at the same time? And that's when I started to do what now would seem a no-brainer, build your brand on the internet through basketball. So I started making my own products, starting $5 products, selling them to basketball players. I started talking a little bit about my own story because players were starting to get curious about me personally after these years of putting out these videos. And that's when self-publishing became a thing. Putting yourself out there on the internet started to become a thing. So I was an early adopter, and that was kind of the inflection point when I started to do what became the foundation of my business here today. So should I go on quickly for the next?
That's good.
15 years?
Well,
okay, good.
I mean, early adopter of video and everything and the internet. I think that is a good illustration that you just never know what's going to lead to success. So when you do things and stuff, it's amazing how many times we have entrepreneurs on the show, and my story included, like things that you did that seemingly like weren't like a big deal or didn't, they weren't like business related even at the time or whatever, come back and end up being really good strengths or opportunities for you later. And I think that's a kind of a unique theme in your story. I was a D3 athlete too. And I think the other thing too that, people need to understand about that is you don't get paid to play D3 ball in anything. I played football, right? You still got all the time, you got all the film, you got all the work, you got all the practice and all that stuff, but you're not getting a scholarship for that type of thing. You're not getting, INL or NIL today, but you weren't getting anything like that. So you had to really love the game to play at that level, and you had to have a lot of discipline. And this is where I think some of your talks and stuff come from, and to do that because you got to handle school and full-time class load and all that stuff with it. So I just think it's important for people to understand that. I've got I've got a number of ways I want to go with you today. So I'm going to try to get it all in. I don't think we will, but maybe we'll do a part 2 sometime. I want you to break down what it really means. Now, 7.5 million downloads. What does it really mean to work on your game? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So what it means to work on your game is, first of all, to understand what game you're in or what business you're in. And I find that a lot of people think that they're in one business or game, but they're actually in a different one. So the first one is knowing what business you're in or what game you're in. Second one is then now with that understanding, you develop the skills necessary to excel and perform in that particular game. And then the third piece is you go out there and you actually perform. And when you perform, you produce results, then you get the rewards that you want. So it's basically a 3-step process. Understand the game, develop your game, and then go show your game.
So how do you coach or what have you found to help people understand what game they're truly in? Because I think a lot of people think they're in a game, but they're really not. They're in a different one and they don't even know.
Sure. Well, the biggest thing is just asking people questions and letting them kind of bring it out of them, because that's really what education really means. And I've been talking about this to my audiences lately. A lot of people think education means going to school and reading the books and taking the tests. That's not education. Education means to bring something out from within. And the way you bring something out of another person is you ask them questions to help them develop the insight to figure out what's already there. So for me, the people that I work with, a lot of it is just asking them questions, basically taking the answers that they give me and kind of saying, okay, well, since you said this and we know this, well, what does that mean? And helping them see it themselves, because as they say, I think it was the late Zig Ziglar who said it, what I say to you is not nearly as valuable as what you say to you. So it's getting people to see the light themselves is more important than me being so eloquent and giving them all the information, because even though they may appreciate it, it's not going to really make an impact on them unless they're giving it to themselves. So the biggest thing is just helping people see, here's the game that you're actually in, because look at how doing this leads to this outcome versus doing that leads to that outcome.
Right. For a long time, I've said most people don't get what they want because they don't know what they want, because they never take the time to ask themselves what they want and actually go deep into that, 2, 3, 4 levels deep, because the surface level, typical answer is not the real answer, right? Do you find that too when you work with people that, you kind of got to go down the rabbit hole a little bit with them to finally get to what they truly want?
Yeah, I think that's true of all humans. I mean, we all are pretty good, especially once we become adults, and the smarter we are, the more we're guilty of it, is that there's always the good reason and then there's the real reason. And the real reason is usually something that's connected to emotions or a deep desire, whereas the good reason is the thing that just sounds good and the thing that we're willing to share with the world and tell everybody. But the real reason may be something much deeper and much more personal.
Yeah. And it's a curse of the society we live in. I always say too, we live in an instant society, right? We can't even wait 3 seconds for the microwave to stop. We, stop the microwave, 3 seconds left now. So everything's so instant that, most people just never take the time to stop and really think anymore in a lot of ways. Right. And, and truly make those decisions for themselves, like core values. Like you can ask people, what are your core values? And they'll rattle off a few things. But when you say, like, how'd you come up with those? Then they start to think about it like, well, this is a core value and this one too. And people don't think about that stuff as much anymore. But if they do the work to do that, it's I think it's game changing for them, and game changing for anyone, because now they really have a North Star and they really know where they're going, what they want, principles to get them there and all that. And that kind of leads me to your 4 areas, right? Discipline, mental toughness, personal initiative, confidence, right? Talk just about each one of those. I have different definitions for those. I'd love to hear what yours are.
Sure. So this is going right down the line. So the first one, most important one, is discipline. And that's your willingness and ability to show up day after day to do the work, whatever that work happens to be. And underneath that, the subtopic of discipline, you get consistency, you get persistence, you get showing up and building a reputation for yourself. And the reason discipline is number one, because anytime anybody asks me, Dre, what's the number one internal mindset level trait that's been most important for you and what you've done, the answer is always discipline, because motivation is great. Motivation feels good. The challenge of motivation is that it doesn't always show up. It is not as reliable as discipline. And every professional has to be disciplined, because as a professional, you're doing something as your main paid occupation, which means to get paid consistently, you have to show up consistently. But motivation doesn't show up every day. Nobody's motivated every day. There's no professional listening to this who has been motivated every single day of your professional career. However, you still showed up and did your job on those days on which you were not motivated. That's why discipline is number one. Now, discipline then leads to confidence. The second piece is confidence. Confidence is the thing most people want a whole lot more of, because we understand, well, we reason to understand that if we're more confident, we'll try more things. That means we'll do more things. We'll believe in ourselves more. That energy projects onto others, and they look at us in the way that we are projecting ourselves out there. And if we do more, try more, and we do it with some skill level and some belief in ourselves, we tend to achieve more. And that makes perfect sense and is all true. The challenge is a lot of people don't know where confidence comes from. They don't understand that discipline creates confidence. So they go trying to create confidence in using what I call inaccurate formulas, such as fake it till you make it, or searching for motivation in all the wrong places, we end up not having it. So there's discipline and confidence. Third piece is the mental toughness. Mental toughness is, these days, a lot of people talk about mental health. So mental toughness and mental health are not diametrically opposed. Mental toughness is like the security system for your mental health. Because mental health is like it's just your human state, is the human condition. Where are you? How are you feeling? Whether that's positive, negative, good, bad, whatever, that's your mental health. Mental toughness is the security guard around your mental health that helps you continue to show up, continue to be disciplined and confident, even if or when you doing all the quote unquote right things has not yet produced the desired outcome. And this is necessary because in life, no one has everything go perfect. No one has a yellow brick road, even though from the outside looking in, if you look at someone else's life, it may seem that they have a lot less challenges and a lot less difficulty than any of us has individually. Because of course, we can see all the details of our own lives. We can only see the highlight reel for the most part of everybody else's life. So that mental toughness is the perseverance, the stick-to-itiveness, the grit, the resilience to keep going when things are not working the way they're supposed to be working. And the last one is the personal initiative. Personal initiative is simply what is going to move you to the action of actually doing the thing. Because all those previous ones, discipline, confidence, mental toughness, are ways of thinking, but we still have to put it into action. How do you actually put this stuff into use in the real world and make it work? And a big thing that a lot of people lack these days is the initiative to actually get started, or the accountability to continue going, especially when, again, that mental toughness gets called in. So those four pieces, discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative, as you said, they're the foundation of everything that I do and everything that we do over here at Work on Your Game.
Well, and they're the foundation that, we've got 400 plus episodes of entrepreneurs. It's really the foundation for success too. It's, I'm smiling as you say these things because, like, discipline, I've always said that the formula I use for just about anything, like I'm dissecting a business or even looking at how I can get better in different areas of my life, is DCP, discipline, consistency, persistence. And discipline is doing the things that you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do them, right? That's discipline. Consistency is doing that day in and day out without fail. And then persistence, no matter what, even if you're disciplined and consistent, I'm sure you've been there before, you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to hit things that seem insurmountable. And if you aren't willing to persist through them, that's where you plateau. And that's where you stop, right? And so, like, I love how you tie confidence into the discipline, though, because discipline, if you do things day in and day out, you start to get progress. Progress starts to breed success. Success starts to breed that confidence that up levels you and so on. And then the mental toughness piece is, for me, always been a really important aspect of developing out, because all this stuff's like a muscle, right? It's not like you don't, some people naturally have some of this, but a lot of it can be developed and trained, but you have to do it day in and day out like a muscle. And mental toughness is a muscle just like that. And then that all leads to that personal initiative to get up and get going and make it happen. And so the way the four that come together, it makes perfect sense. In fact, I want to dig into this a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about how you've even used these to build your own business. I'm going to take a quick, just 1 minute break. We'll come right back and do that.
Misfit Entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? The cost can easily exceed 6 figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of 3 non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again.
All right. So Dre, one of the things when I hear your story and talk about your journey, one phrase comes to mind: burning desire. And to me, it's like you wanted it bad enough that you would not be denied, right? And I think this goes along with our last discussion on obviously mental toughness and initiative and that sort of thing too. But how can others tap into, I think everybody has a burning desire, right? To tap into. Like, how can they tap into theirs and use it to fuel their success?
Well, the first thing is asking yourself, what is it that you want? And then it's the process of just asking yourself, why do I want it? And the more you ask yourself the question why, the further we get away from, or we peel back the layers of logic and rational thinking, which is where most of us start, especially males. And then we get to the emotional levels as we start peeling back the layers. And burning desire is really more emotional than it is logical, because the metaphor I tell people, Dave, is that logic is your steering wheel while your emotions are the gas pedal. And car's not going anywhere without gas. And you have to press on the gas. That's the emotion. And it's not that your emotions are going to control you. That's why they're not the steering wheel. Never let your emotions take the wheel, because they'll run you into a wall. But once you have the wheel directed where you want to go logically, then you engage your emotions to move you towards the action. They become the fuel for the fire, so to speak. So it's really just asking yourself, why do I want this thing? And being willing to be honest with yourself about why you want it. And again, that's the reason why I said earlier that this becomes something that's more personal, because the real why behind somebody's actions may not be something that you want posted on a billboard or you want the whole world to know about, but it is the main thing that's driving you. So that's what we all had to be willing to be honest with ourselves about, even if you don't tell anybody else.
Yeah, and you got to take time to get there too, because most people, if they say they have a why, but they aren't acting and they aren't pushing forward to, what they say they want, then that's not the real why. They don't really have a why, right? They got to, because how many people do we see that have all the talent in the world, all the ability and stuff, but they never get there. They never, reach the potential, right? And part of that's because they aren't driven enough. And it's almost, I always say it's kind of a healthy obsession in the end, right? You probably relate to that, with your basketball career, and something drove you to go like it wasn't enough just to go play D3. It wasn't enough to be a college athlete. You're like, I'm going pro, and you had this burning desire to go pro and did everything possible to get there. Whatever that driver was, for you, that why was so strong that it would not be denied. And everybody has that somewhere. You just got to find it and tap into it. It's amazing what it'll do for your life,
Yes. So a couple of things that you said there. When it comes to the why, yes, everybody has one. It's just that not everybody's in touch with theirs, or they're aware of it, but for whatever reason, maybe it's been kind of beat out of them, so to speak, socially, that maybe it's not okay to go after that why, because it was taught to you that going after, let's say you want to make a lot of money, it was taught to you that people who make a lot of money are somehow bad or evil. So then you don't want to go after the why. So you come up with something that sounds good, that's more socially acceptable, and then you go after that. So 100% on the same page you do. Something else you said there, but I forgot what it was.
That's all right. But you're speaking my language with that, because what you're talking about is our conditioning. So, from like I always say that it's the same thing. Like, nobody comes out of the womb with their path set. Everybody has a clean slate. It's not like you came in the womb and said, Dre, beautiful baby, he'll never be able to play basketball or sell 400 products on YouTube, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. We are literally taught, through the influences for our lives. Since the minute we are born, we're absorbing all of this. And most people don't realize that the subconscious is really the most powerful part of our mind, right? We have conscious and a subconscious. And the subconscious, though, is the most animal part, and it runs us without us even thinking about it. Like, most people, you don't think throw a ball or brush your teeth, or when you're driving a car, people don't think to do that. It becomes second nature because that's the subconscious driving it. Well, It's the same thing in all these areas of your lives. You mentioned like money, right? If I hear somebody saying, well, I'll never have enough, or money doesn't grow on trees, or those old phrases or things like that, that tells me where their conditioning is and what is the inputs in their mind that cause them to react to those situations in their life. No wonder they're not getting where they want to go. They're telling themselves, and you see this every time somebody that acts like that gets a little bit of money, they find a way to give it back or get rid of it, because they're conditioned to do so. And the ultimate personal power is learning to live from true choice. Once you realize this about your mind and recognize those type of thoughts that are there, and then you start to ask yourself, well, did I put that there? Do I want to have that? Or do I want to change it? Do I want to choose what my thoughts are? Once you learn to do that, you can change anything. You can redirect and retrain your subconscious to have everything you want. You probably went through something like that at some point, maybe even naturally. But I find a lot of entrepreneurs either naturally do it or have learned to do that over time.
Yeah, it's a combination of both for me. So naturally it happened. And at the same time, I'm aware of it and how the subconscious mind works and how you can program it and all those things. So it's both for me. I think I was naturally doing it to myself even before I knew what it was. And then when I found out what it was, I said, oh, I've been doing that kind of, sort of. Now I'm going to be doing it on purpose and help other people do it.
Yeah. And then it becomes, it's amazing once you learn it and understand awareness, like you said, is kind of the catalyst to all that and change and to really get it. It becomes a lot of fun, because it's like a superpower that you can start to use and help others use. And to that point about your business, right? So yeah, you got on YouTube early, right? But like anything, you still have to put out good content. You still have to be engaging. You still have to give people things that they want to come back for. And that, talk to us about how you built your business, how you did your revenue streams, like what principles, like somebody watching you going, I want to do something like Dre did. I got a message I want to get out there, right? Like what steps can someone use to create success online that you think are pretty consistent?
Well, the first thing I did, now mind you, I started in 2005 when content was not even a word. I was just putting out basketball content for myself. Not really, actually, it really first was for myself. I just wanted to get the VHS footage onto a digital format. But then when I saw that there were other basketball players who wanted to learn from me, I just started basically answering their questions, even if it wasn't exactly a question, with content. So anytime someone came to me with a question, well, hey, how about dribbling? How about making a layup with the left hand or the right hand? I would just go record some content about that, answering the question. Or if someone asked me a question that wasn't quite the question they should be asking, I've always had the ability to kind of see what they should ask instead of what they're actually asking. I would answer that question before they even got around to asking it. So that's how I got started, which is basically serving your audience, knowing the needs of your audience. And this is easiest to do in my experience, Dave, if you are serving people who are where you used to be. So for example, if I wanted to go teach, if I wanted to start a new YouTube channel teaching plumbers how to build a business, it would be a little bit more difficult because I don't have the experience of being a plumber, but I could do it because I can learn about plumbing and I can break it down. My superpower is breaking things down, making them easy to digest. But it was really easy for me because I not only have that superpower, but also I was applying it to something that I knew really well. So all I was doing was serving people who were basically 10 years behind me for the most part. They wanted to be basketball players, didn't have anybody to teach them, and they wanted to learn. The only difference between me and them is that they could go to the internet and crowdsource information. Whereas in my era, our era in the 90s, if you didn't know anybody, you just didn't know. You just had to hope you got lucky. I got lucky figuring out basketball on my own.
Catch a break.
So
yep.
That's how I started, was just answering the questions of my audience. And that's really all I do to this day is just figure out what questions that my audience is these days. I've answered pretty much all the direct questions I could be asked. Anything you could come up with, I've answered it. But now what I do is figure out what question should you be asking that you're not asking. I call that insight. And that's what I help a lot of people with as a coach and in business. And then just finding another thing you have to do, especially when you get to creating as much content as I have, is you got to figure out ways to give people the same information, but repackage it in a different way because people like new stuff. Dre, you have a video on this.
Well, they hear things, different people hear things different ways too.
That's right. So people want new stuff. Hey, that video came out 3 years ago. Even though I would say the exact same thing today, can you make a new one? I'll do that. And as you said, repackaging it so they can hear it in a different way or in a different format, or just figuring out a different angle from which to talk about the same thing. So I've talked about these things you've asked me about: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, from 100 different angles each. And one angle might reach one person, but a different angle reaches a different person. So that's all correct. And these days, again, it's just looking for new angles and new things as new things happen. We do have new stuff happening because of technology. You got things like artificial intelligence. It wasn't a thing 10 years ago, at least not to me. Now you can come up with angles from that, but there's not as much new stuff happening that people know about as there is time to fill the space. So again, it's a lot of times it's repurposing and repackaging your message in different ways so that different people can get it.
So, I get asked this question too. I mean, I've been podcasting almost as long as you've been doing YouTube, right? And the people are like, you know what it is. Like people are like, oh, I want to start a YouTube channel, but I don't have the video experience, or I don't know how to edit, or, all this, there's all these reasons not to do it, which, versus like looking for the one reason to do it. And, my advice to people, like whenever, like I want to start a podcast or whatever, it's discipline, it's consistency, it's persistence, because your audience gets used. Like if you put out a video every Wednesday, like this show drops every Wednesday, right? So people 10 years, have been knowing that, hey, they can count on the show to drop every Wednesday, right? Same thing like with your video and stuff like that. I think that's even more important. Like, yeah, quality does matter more, especially now than it did in 2005, probably. But I think most people they worry about all those things that keep them from starting, where if they just grab their iPhone and record a video of them sharing something to their self 10 years ago, right? That, they wish that they knew, that they would gain traction and they get better from there. I mean, what are your thoughts on like how to do it right nowadays if somebody's starting up on, let's say, YouTube?
Well, similar to you, Dave, and still true to this day, I still don't have video experience and I'm still not a good editor, but I still put out content every day. I got video experience and I know how to turn on the camera and record it, but I don't really edit my videos hardly at all. I shoot my stuff in pretty much one take and we put it out how it comes. I was doing that even in the basketball days, except just cutting out, chasing after the ball. So
yeah, people don't
saying
care.
All that, yeah, they don't care. I'm saying all that to say this: if your material is good enough, the content is good enough, people don't care about the context. And what happens is a lot of times you see somebody with looks like they have a full professional setup and they have multiple cameras all shooting them sitting at the same spot and their background looks all beautiful. You're like, well, I can't compete with that. Well, neither can I. I don't try to. I just put out the message that I'm putting out. And I know when the right audience finds it, they will appreciate it. And they don't say anything about, well, you don't have a professional setup or you only have one camera, so I'm not going to listen to you. Nobody says that. It's cool to have it. If I had it, I would use it. But I'm not editing that video. That's too much work. I've done some video editing. I know how to edit. Picture in my head. If I could edit a video, I know exactly how I would do it. But it takes all day to edit a video. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. I'm just going to put out things how I want to put them out. And the right audience will find it. Maybe one day there'll be some AI software or I have a team of people who will spend all day doing that, but it will not be me. And the main thing is really the power of the message. If you're giving people what they need to hear and what they're looking for, you're answering their questions, they will listen to everything that you have to say. You want to find a person who is like, man, I want to take in everything you said. I just heard of you today. Like I do lives to this day every weekday. And people will hear me and say, man, I never heard of you before today, but I'm so glad I found you. Now I'm going to start digging into all your stuff. Those are the people you want to serve, not the people who are kind of like surface level. All right, he's all right, but I don't like his camera angle. I don't like his background. The video's not edited enough. They're saying that's not your person. You want to find the right person. The good news, Dave, is that there are 8 billion people on the planet. So if the person watching you today is not your person, that's okay. There are a lot more out there.
Yeah, that's I couldn't have said it better. Just get out there and do it. Share your message. All right. So, I'm pretty disciplined. I compete pretty high level at Ironman. There's some days I got to train for 7-8 hours a day and everything else. And, the earliest that I get up, on most days to do any of that stuff is like 4 a.m. And I read that you're getting up at 3:45 a.m. every day, no alarm clock. I mean, explain that habit, I guess the benefits that you found from that habit for yourself. 3:45 a.m. every day, man. I got to hand it to you.
Well, I do still get up at that time, but I do have to add an asterisk to that. I don't know, it might be on my website. But since I've had a child, sometimes I do use the alarm clock. So I use a smart alarm. Yeah, I use a smart alarm, which is you give it a window, like 30-minute window. So any time between 3:15 and 3:45, it'll go off if it has to. But many days I still wake up before the alarm goes off. And yeah, I still get up at that time. And that started really, I'll tell you how that started. So in 2006, this is early in my basketball career. At this point, I was in between jobs. basketball jobs. I was working at this corporate sports gym in Philadelphia. And the good thing about working at a gym as an athlete is that you can use the facility for free. But the location that I worked at didn't have a basketball court, but they had other locations that did. So where I was situated in the city, the gym that had a basketball court that I could use for free was like 40 minutes north of me. And the place I worked was like 20 minutes south of me. So all I did was just reverse engineer. I got to be at work at 9 o'clock every morning. So that means I got to get on the road to start driving at 8 o'clock, which means I got to get off the basketball court and start showering at 7:30, which means I got to finish my workout by, let's say, 7:15, which means I got to get to the gym at 6:15, which means I got to leave the house at 5:30, which means I got to get up at 4 o'clock in order to be ready and get there and do all of that in order. And that's how I started waking up at 4 in the morning. That's really where it started. And during that time period, I almost got fired from my job a couple of times because you got to sacrifice something if you're working that kind of schedule. Because I would go get up early, work out, go to work, 9 to 5, metaphorically. Then at night, I would go and play in basketball leagues, like playing games and workouts and stuff like that. So I'm not getting to sleep until 11, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Then I'm waking up at 4 o'clock. So the sleep is sacrificed. So I was getting my sleep. I was just falling asleep on my desk at work. So one time the manager came in, he caught me sleeping. He said, "Hey, if I catch you sleeping again, I'm gonna have to send you home." He was nice about it, but he couldn't. It's corporate. They can't do it. And then once we had a regional meeting with the regional manager, my boss's boss, and he kicked me out of a meeting because I kept falling asleep while he was talking. He was boring anyway, but I wasn't supposed to be falling asleep. So that's where the 4 a.m. thing started. And I just kept it up because I just like having I guess you can call it a discipline. I just like having that edge of it being 8 o'clock in the morning. And I've already done a bunch of things that most people can't do over 24 hours in a day. So I just have stuck to that schedule.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I do think there is an edge to maybe not 3:45 a.m. for most people, but there's an edge to getting up, earlier than most and attacking some of your most important items on the to-do list or things you got to do for the day by 8, 9 a.m. and getting them done. It does really set you up for more success and leads to you having more opportunity too. So yeah, I saw that. I thought I'd call you on that. That's pretty good. You got a couple more questions before we get your Misfit 3. One of those is, and I think people can maybe take a guess at what these things are, but I'd still love to hear it. Like pro athlete, all those years and everything, what are some of the most important lessons or habits that you learned during that time that have translated really well to help you in entrepreneurship?
Excellent question. I was just talking about this again today, actually, when I was doing my live stream. Someone disagreed with something that I said, one of the commentators, and I helped them understand this. Every time when I do content and people don't really know me, I make sure I emphasize to them that my background is in sports, not so that they are impressed by my background being in sports, because many people I talk to today don't care. I help them understand, Dave, that my background is in sports because the sports world is the closest thing to a meritocracy you will get, where the best performers get the rewards. The rest of life, especially the business world, is not a meritocracy. It is very political. It's much more about strategy, and it's about who you know. That's what the business world is. Now, you do need to be good, but if you don't have the right politics, you don't know the right people, you don't have the right strategy, you could be really good and still fail. In the sports world, though, is the closest thing to the performers are usually at the top. They're usually the ones making the most money, and they're the ones that everybody know. In the sports world, that's the closest you're ever going to find to it. I tell people that to help them understand that when I explain to them, yes, I understand that your boss may be hating on you. I understand that your coworkers may not like you. I understand that somehow the business environment is working against you. You still have to find a way to perform. We're in a performance and a results-based business. I tell people that all the time. That's the foundation of what Work on Your Game is about. At the end of everything, it's about your performance and the results that you produce. We're not going to put it on your tombstone that you would have been a good basketball player if coach wasn't hating on you in ninth grade, right? All that's going to matter is what you actually did and what we can put on the bottom line. That's how it goes. And I was saying this morning, is a very masculine frame from which to look at things, but I'm a male. I don't have a female experience. So I tell people this, and there are women who appreciate it. There are some women who can't take it, but that's my approach. So to answer your question, is the fact that I come from the sports world, and in the sports world, the bottom line is the scoreboard. The scoreboard is the ultimate arbiter. And the good thing about a scoreboard is that it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotions, it doesn't get tired, it doesn't take a break, it doesn't go on vacation, it doesn't need a cigarette break, it doesn't go on lunch. It's just going to tell you objectively what it is, who's winning and who's losing. And it's black and white like that, the scoreboard. And we are going to have that as the ultimate arbiter at the end of everything. And opinions don't matter when everybody gets on the court or the field or the track or in the pool for an Ironman. It doesn't matter. All that matters is who performed, what are the results on the scoreboard, and that's all the history is going to know.
Yeah, I mentioned before we started today that I watched a few of your videos and got a kick out of some of them because that really comes through on the merit side. I think you understand it, and I think our society's understanding it more, and we're starting to we moved to it, and now I think we're moving away from it, and it's this kind of like this society of like playing the role of a victim,
Yes,
where a lot of people,
right now.
yeah, where a lot of people claim to be, victims because it's the easy way out when they're not really a victim of anything, and it's back to what's on the scoreboard, and they're not willing to do what needs to be done to get the scoreboard in their favor. And like I said, I think we're starting, the pendulum starting to swing back the other way, and that's the nature of society. It swings one way, gets maybe too far, and swings back, and it kind of ultimately goes like this.
Yes.
I think the victim mentality is something that holds people back in such a huge way. Going back to the talk earlier about subconscious and in that conditioning and stuff. I think in a lot of ways we've conditioned people that be a victim, it's okay, right? And it's not. And unless you're truly a victim, and if you are, you should get all the help, and we should help somebody who truly is a victim of something, of a horrible experience or whatever, to get over that. But playing the role is what most people do, that have all the tools, all the capabilities and everything, and just don't want to put it to work and do it because it's hard, right? Succeeding on merit is hard. And things are stacked against you in the real world, right? So I guess I'd love to hear your just thoughts on that. And I've got a couple more things, and then I'd love to get to your Misfit 3.
Sure. So as they say, strong people lead to a easy society, and then that easy society creates weak people, and weak people create a hard society. So I
good
think
times,
we
hard
are
times.
right now. Yeah, right. Yeah, yes, exactly. So right now, I think, unfortunately, Dave, and for your listeners, I think we're on the precipice of a hard times because we have a very weak society right now. We have a lot of people who are, and what you just described, like, yes, there's a difference between a victim in fact and a victim of the mind. And when you say the victim society, I think you mean people mentally victims. They are just looking at themselves as a victim. You see a victim when you look in the mirror. Now,
They use it as a crutch. They use it as a crutch for
Exactly.
not having to overcome the challenges that they, should work hard to overcome.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And I tell people, if I'm driving in my car and I stop at a red light and someone rear ends me, yes, I'm a victim of someone rear ending my car, but I don't have to go around life saying, hey, I'm a victim because this guy hit the back of my car. And now my car's in the shop for 3 weeks and my back hurts and now I got to take Uber. All those things are true, but I don't have to see myself as a victim just because I'm a victim. In fact, I don't have to be a victim of the mind. And the other thing is, especially in the sports world, because I had a young man who was kind of challenging something I was saying today. He said, well, I played football and I knew for a fact that there were some guys sitting on the bench who were better than the starters. I said, well, welcome to life. That's exactly how it works. I'm a professional speaker. Sometimes I go to conferences and see speakers on the stage and I'm like, somebody paid this guy? How? Right? That's business. And people pick who they want to pick. What I said to him is that I was in that situation in college. I had coaches who I felt like I should have been getting more playing time. I wasn't. That was my opinion. And I said to him the same thing I'll tell you and tell your audience, Dave, that if you don't have the power to enforce your opinion, then your opinion, I mean, you can have it, but it doesn't really matter. All right. The power of your opinion is the power that you have to do something with it. Just because you have it doesn't really mean anything. And you need to understand power dynamics. My favorite book, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And a lot of people don't like to hear the kind of things that Robert talks about in that book because it's a slap in the face with reality that a lot of people really don't want to receive.
And by the way, reality always wins out in the end. Just for everybody, watching, listening. I mean, it may take a while, but reality always does usually win out. Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. And there's also, speaking of that, is like, I don't know if you saw that letter that Jeff Bezos, Amazon guy, but he owns the Washington Post. What he said to his editorial staff, they were mad because he wasn't going to run any article where they endorsed a candidate for president. He said, well, we aren't trusted. Nobody trusts us. They trust us less than they trust Congress. All right. So reality is undefeated. Reality is telling us that people do not trust newspapers. We have to start winning trust back, and we're going to start by doing things this way. And the problem is a lot of people just want to do what they feel rather than doing what actually
half of them
works.
Quit,
they
right?
don't want to hear.
Didn't half the people of the newspaper quit?
Yeah, a bunch of people quit, and then a bunch of people, they bitched and complained about it for a couple of days, but they're still at work. And I was talking about that on social media when it happened. But the whole point being that in life, people are going to do things that you don't like. People are going to go against what you think they should do. People's opinions will differ from yours. And sometimes you're in a power struggle that you can't win. You being an athlete, me having played team sports, we have any team sport athletes listening to this, all of us have been in power struggles that we couldn't win. Now, you don't have more power than the coach. I heard the coach has the power. And if you don't like that coach, get on a different team and prove it. And that's what I had to do. We were talking about the whys as I'm going on a tangent here, but goes with what we've been talking about. What's your why? My why for making it as an athlete was all the coaches I dealt with who didn't give me a chance, didn't let me play, didn't put me in a position I wanted to play in. And I wanted to prove for posterity's sake, hey, you were wrong and I was right. And the only way I could prove that is by going to the next level, the next level, and the next level, and making sure that my career was longer than a bunch of players who I had played with coming up through the amateur ranks. That was my why. That was the real reason. Good reason is, well, I'm tall, I got long arms, I can jump high. There's a million guys who can do that. They don't become athletes, right? So that's the logical reason. But the emotional reason was I had a point to prove. And again, I'm speaking from the male ego perspective. I don't know if women can relate to this, but males definitely can. I'm sure, Dave, you can. But that's where I come from.
Yeah, you got to want it, man. And that's part of that too. I didn't think about this, but it kind of popped in my head as you're talking about that. We have a lot of people that listen and watch this show, including many African Americans. What is your best advice for an aspiring African American entrepreneur to succeed?
Same thing I'll tell a white guy. Get something of value that you can offer to the marketplace, bring it to the market. The way you do business, first of all, you find a problem that people have. You either develop or get access to the solution. So you can develop it by making your own course to help people with mindset, or you can get access. Like people need cars, you can go work for the Honda dealership or the Lexus dealership to sell cars. Next thing is you have to let people know that you have a solution to their problem. That's called marketing. And then the next piece is once you have a conversation with them, you share the virtues of what you're offering and how it solves their problem, and you ask for the sale. That's the same thing anyone in business has to do. And the thing that I tell Black folks in America is that you have to get out of this mentality that, and it's challenging, this mentality that you are a victim, because let's be honest here, Dave, there are a lot of people who have used this offensively to their advantage. It's worked for them. So we can't say that it doesn't work. It works. I think it's starting to die now. That era is starting to go away. And people are going to have to go back to earning it. The good news is there are plenty of people who have earned it and are actively earning it. And you can learn from those people. And it starts with the mentality. Mindset is the foundation of all successes, is the foundation of all failures, is the foundation of all mediocrity, that we have to put ourselves in the right frame of mind, then do the stuff, then we get the results.
Right. It's a great message and a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit 3. And we're going to do that. We're going to take just one more 1-minute break. And we'll be right back with Dre's Misfit 3.
Before we get into today's Misfit 3, I want to take a minute to talk to you about a free resource available to you from the Misfit Entrepreneur, the Misfit Minute. The Misfit Minute is the free weekly resource packed with useful tips, tricks, and information from the world of Misfit entrepreneurs. It not only includes further resources on the week's Misfit Entrepreneur guest, but additional links, articles, and resources to help you be more successful. It's delivered every Friday to your inbox. To sign up, all you have to do is go to the homepage at www.misfitentrepreneur.com and you will see the Misfit Minute sign-up page. Don't miss out on this great resource and all it has to help you. Sign up today and look for it this Friday.
Okay, it's time for Dre's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take away that you can take, put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Dre, what are your Misfit 3?
All right, great question. Number 1 is that life is a performance and a results-based business. You have to go out there and perform at whatever space you choose to be in or whatever place you find yourself in, and your rewards will be based on the results that you produce. Nothing else, not the story. And people don't care about your story until you produce results. When you produce results, then everybody wants to know your story. Everybody has a story. Not everybody's story gets heard because of this. That's number 1. Number 2 is that, I'll leave that one for number 3. Number 2 is, if you're going to be a professional at what you do, get paid to do something and make money from it, you need to find your discipline and not seek motivation. And if you do have motivation, you must learn how to transmute that motivation into long-term drive and long-term discipline, because motivation won't always show up. But if you're going to be a professional at what you do, in other words, someone's paying you to do it, you can't depend on something that doesn't show up every day, because you have to show up every day. Discipline shows up every day. So make sure you turn motivation into discipline. Motivation is not bad, but you can't base your career off it. And number 3, you do not have time. Many people think that they have time. You do not have time. No one listening to this, I don't think, knows exactly how much time you have left. So we need to consistently remind ourselves that our time is short. We are not guaranteed the next hour, let alone the next 10 years. Every time you procrastinate, put something off till later, tell yourself that you'll do it later, or move slowly, which is less than the full speed that you can move at, you are placing a blind bet that you will be around to get around to things later. And there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Most people who pass away didn't know that that day was the day. So we have to keep reminding ourselves that our time is limited. We don't know how much of it that we have, and we need to treat our time accordingly by moving as fast as possible, making decisions quickly, and doing things now instead of doing things later.
Dre, that's an excellent Misfit 3. And that last one is a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, of course, you can find me on any social media platform. If you just look up my name, Dre Baldwin, I'm pretty easy to find on every app. The screen names are different on everything. And you can also find me at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where all of our programs stem from. That's the main place that has our focus and attention right now.
Excellent. We'll link to all that in the show notes. The best show notes in the business. No offense, for reasons I'll talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, this is your first episode with us. Welcome. It is such an honor to have you with us. Thank you for watching and listening. And I hope you become a regular subscriber, and that this messages like this really resonate with you, and that you can take them and use them. And for all of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for the support. So you are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. As part of my personal growth routine built into my discipline routine, I go back through these episodes with amazing guests like Dre, and I pull my best pieces of wisdom and insights and things, and I share those with you. So go out and check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review. Like and comment on it. Help share Dre's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Dre shared was that missing link you were looking for in your life today. So go share this with others. And again, Dre, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insights.
Dave, thank you for sharing your platform. I appreciate the opportunity.